Santos, your moderator for this session. Before we begin, allow me to give some house rules. First, please use your name that you registered with us. Second, we will appreciate it a lot if you could keep your microphones on mute so that we will not be able to disturb the ongoing session. And lastly, if you have any question or you wish to indulge us in the conversation, please feel free to send us your message or even your question via Zoom chat, and we'll be happy to read them for you. Once again, welcome to the International Arts Talk in collaboration with the College of Arts and Letters, University of the Philippines-Diliman, titled Gender, Media and Language in the Philippines and Thailand, a transnational conversation. To formally start today's session, let us welcome the Deans of the Faculty of Arts and the College of Arts and Letters. Let us begin with the Dean of the Faculty of Arts of Chulalongkorn University. Please welcome Associate Professor Dr. Suradet Chotdompan.
Thank you so much, Joey. Good evening, Your Excellency, Professor Naval, and all participants. And of course, I think we are probably experiencing the full house here, in a Zoom room. I'm very glad to see so many participants from different countries joining us, not only the Philippines and Thailand, but also from, I'm sure, probably from different other countries as well. So welcome to our International Art Talk series. And the original purpose of this series is to make internationalization possible for our students, staff, and arts communities during the time when physical international connection is not possible. So the merit of Zoom, however, give us a chance to share the events with the public and the international community. At the moment, our students and staff are in the first week of our first semester, and all of us here are working hard not only to grapple with the pandemic, but also not to let it affect our daily lives. Today, together with the College of Arts and Letters, University of the Philippines-Diliman, and the Philippine Embassy in Bangkok, the Faculty of Arts Chulalongkorn University is very honored to host this talk. This occasion celebrates the 72nd anniversary of the signing of the Treaty of Friendship between the Republic of the Philippines and the Kingdom of Thailand. So Thailand and the Philippines have always been close friends, as can be seen in the connections of many of our students and staff. Joey here is a living testament of that connection. So I have been to the Philippines myself a few times and found that we have a lot in common in many aspects of our cultures. One of which is, of course, my favorite sweet mangoes. No wonder we can connect to each other easily. So in addition to the celebration above, this talk is also part of the recognition of the Pride movement in support of sexual diversity. Despite international attempts to create sexual equality during this past decade, all of us still experience sexism in many places around the world. So sexism exists not only in the culture, but also in language. It has occupied so many aspects of our lives that we are not even aware of. So considering this situation, it is only apt that in this talk, the audience will be able to partake of the experiences of two closely connected South Asian countries, which in turn will create further awareness of sexual inequality and pave the way, hopefully, for sexual equality internationally at last. So finally, I'm very pleased that this event actually reflects the true collaboration of university students and staff from Thailand and Philippines, many of whom finally become friends. And my thanks as well to students and staff from both the Chulalongkorn University and the University of Philippines-Diliman, for joining this event. And so I truly hope that more of the collaboration of this nature will happen in the future, which it will help cement our relationship further and lead to more and more activities to come. But I also hope that our Filipino friends can finally visit our country and vice versa. And so thanks again. So right now we have exactly 300 people in the room, so actually experiencing the full amount of Zoom. So those people who want to attend to the talk probably can join us from Facebook Live. So I would like to say hi, not only for participants in this room, but also participants on Facebook worldwide now, of course, given thanks to the Zoom. So please enjoy the talk. So hopefully, you get something from this talk and to make the world a better place when we have the sexual equality. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Dr. Suradet. Indeed, the issues that will be brought to the conversation today are very timely, and the collaboration of the two institutions will truly participate in circumventing gender and sexuality issues. And to give us his welcome remarks, let us have the Dean of the College of Arts and Letters from the University of the Philippines-Diliman. Let us welcome Professor Dr. Jimwell C. Naval. Professor Dr. Naval, are you with us?
Okay, hello. Yes, no. Okay, good evening. Sawandi Karap. Yes, magandang araw. Yeah. Good day to everyone. Your Excellency, Dr. Suradek. Good evening. It's an honor for me and the College of Arts and Letters, University of the Philippines-Diliman to be part of this collaboration with the Faculty of Arts of the Chulalongkorn University in the Philippine Embassy in Bangkok. So we are delighted to see the sequel to the first webinar that the UP College of Arts and Letters has hosted in March 2021, entitled Crisis in the Arts in the Philippines and Thailand. In that particular webinar, we met one of your faculty, Dr. Veritas Sriratana. So good evening. Collaboration like this are concrete manifestation of the long-standing relationship between our countries. In terms of diplomatic relations, Thailand is our eldest or oldest friend in ASEAN, Kuya, no? But our relationship may be traced way back in 13th century in the context of maritime trade, which is evidenced by ceramic wares found in the islands of Luzon, Visayas, Sukhothai, and Sawakalok. Yes. Our history has also documented the participation of our Luzon, our Kapampangan's warriors, in particular in the first siege at Ayuntaya in 16th century in defending the kingdom against the invading army and the war elephants of Burma. In 1963, the University of the Philippines has conferred a Doctor of Laws honoris causa to the then King Bumibol Ayulyade. We also study prominent Thai writers in the current era, like Pravda Yoon and Chat Korb GT, to our course on literary connections of the Philippines and Southeast Asia. In addition to this, personally, Thailand has been a favorite Asian destination of my family. That the pandemic nearly locked us in Bangkok last year, after visiting Ayutthaya and of course the famous Chatuchak, weekend market. That's March 2020 last year, So coincidentally, our webinar today is happening during our celebration of our Buwan ng Wikang Pambansa ng Pilipinas, or the Philippine National Language Month. This is a great opportunity to highlight the connection between the language and the discourse on gender and sexuality in the case of both Filipino and Thai language. In search of some references regarding our topic today, I came across the review article of Mark Johnson entitled Sexual Diversity and Gender Variance in Thailand and the Philippines, published in Sojourn Journal, I think in 1997. No? It is a review of the books Dear Uncle Go, Male Homosexuality uh, in Thai by Peter Jackson, and Gay Culture in the Philippines, The Last 30 Years by Jose Neil Garcia, one of our professor in Department of English and Comparative Literature here in UP. This is an interesting read as it examines the view being popularized by Westerners about our countries being open and tolerant towards homosexuality and other form of so-called deviant behavior. It is my hope that this webinar will be able to facilitate a very productive and enlightening discussion on the issue and similar concern. So again, thank you very much to the Faculty of Arts of the Chulalongkorn University and of course, the Philippine Embassy in Bangkok and of course, our very own Associate Dean, no, Dr. Jayson Petras for making today's forum webinar possible. No, we look forward to many more future engagement between Chulalongkorn University and University of the Philippines-Diliman. So, Kopkun Krap Tungkun, no? Is that correct? No? Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat or daghang salamat in Cebuano. Thank you very much and good evening.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Jimwell. Truly, the talk today is well in line with the celebration of the Buwanang Wika, which gives spotlight to the gender dimension of the Filipino language. At this juncture, we would like to invite the Ambassador of the Republic of the Philippines to the Kingdom of Thailand for her opening speech. Let us welcome Her Excellency Millicent Cruz Paredes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to first thank the Chulalongkorn University Faculty of Arts, in particular its Dean, Dr. Suradek Chotyudompant, for inviting me to this forum. I congratulate the Chulalongkorn University Faculty of Arts and the University of the Philippines College of Arts and Letters for jointly organizing this event to mark the 72nd anniversary this year of the signing in 1949 of the Treaty of Friendship between the Republic of the Philippines and the Kingdom of Thailand. Despite the global pandemic, which has drastically changed our lives in almost all aspects, I am pleased that we have the technology available to discuss the important social issues such as what we have this evening. The media serves both as a platform and influencer of our views on gender. A story was featured not long ago in CNN about An San, a female South Korean archer who set an Olympic record by winning 3 gold medals at the recently concluded Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. Apart from receiving praises, she also attracted anti-feminist sentiments for her short hair. According to the story, South Korean women with short hair are labeled as feminists and man-haters. An San's story sparked a public campaign in her defense, which is considered a win for women, adding to the very short list of victories for gender equality in South Korea. This story clearly demonstrates the role of the media as a powerful platform where culturally entrenched gender stereotypes can be dismantled and social attitudes can be reshaped toward improved gender equality. Filipino athletes Heidelin Diaz and Nesty Petesio made history in the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games as the first Filipino women to win a gold and silver medal in weightlifting and boxing respectively, sports that are traditionally and historically dominated by men, not just in the Philippines but around the world. Heidelin also made history as the first Filipino to ever win a gold medal in the Olympics. They each broke records in their respective fields as well as broke gender stereotypes and the gender ceiling. A third Filipina athlete, Marjeline Vidal, did not win any medal in skateboarding, a supposedly masculine sport. Yet she became a worldwide sensation because of her vibrant personality and true sportsmanship for always cheering on her fellow competitors. In Philippine social media, the illustration by artist Anina Mortel has gone viral. It is entitled Kababae Mong Tao, which loosely translates as "You're a woman and yet, dot, dot, dot." In the vernacular, it is said to put a woman in her place or remind her of a woman, of what a woman can and cannot do. However, Mortel's illustration turns the saying on its head to honor and celebrate the Filipina athlete's ability and interests instead of their gender. As the artist said, our Filipina athletes have proven how far they can go and what they can achieve when we do just that. In an article entitled Gendered Media, the Influence of Media on Views of Gender, and this is written by Julia Wood, a professor of communication studies and humanities at the University of North Carolina. She said media is the most pervasive and among the most powerful factors that influence our views of men and women. She identified 3 issues in contemporary media's representation of gender. First is the underrepresentation of women. Second is media's stereotypical ways of portraying gender roles that reflect deep-seated social and cultural attitudes and expectations. Third is the way media characterizes men and women and how it reinforces gender stereotypes and normalizes violence against women. The 10-year review of the implementation of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action highlighted the underrepresentation of women in the media, the lower representation of women at decision-making levels, and the persistence of gender stereotypes and negative images of women as among the continuing challenges in promoting gender equality in media. The 2000 Global Media Monitoring Project also noted the slow progress in improving women's participation and representation in the news. While news coverage of women has increased, the study notes that women remain underrepresented as subject of news stories, as sources for them, as experts commenting on them, and as reporters of the stories. In sum, efforts in all sectors and levels to promote gender equality have to be ramped up for any meaningful outcomes to be realized. It is important to underscore at this point that the current rethinking of the notion of heterosexuality and gender normativity is changing our understanding of gender equality and how they are translated into policy. In the Philippines, various sectors of the media have existing codes of ethics that incorporate gender equality, but efforts are still ongoing to enhance standards. The Philippine government supports the development of gender guidelines for media. The Committee on Media and Gender Equality, that is chaired by the Presidential Communications Operations Office, has developed guidelines on the non-discriminatory and non-derogatory portrayal of women in media and film. Pursuant to Section 19 of the Implementing Rules and Regulations of the Philippine Magna Carta of Women. These include the Gender Equality Guidelines as well as guidelines to protect women against discrimination in media and film, and also the Code of Ethics for Media. The guidelines recognize the powerful role of media in shaping the mindset of the youth and the need to raise the consciousness of the general public in recognizing the dignity of women and the role and contributions of women in the family, community, and society. It also aims to increase media content and news stories, presenting women as credible sources of information and discourage advertisements depicting women as commodities and sex objects. The guidelines highlight the need to capture the gender dimension in news, the better to make women's voices heard and improve the share of stories about women in total news content. With these as background, I'm very much looking forward to the two interesting presentations in our program this evening, focusing on the issues of linguistic sexism and gender oppression, to be delivered by Dr. Jayson Petras of the University of the Philippines and Dr. Porani Singpliam, Chulalongkorn University. I particularly await with anticipation the developments on gender and media issues in Thailand and how the government, civil society, and the media sectors are addressing these issues. May we all have a productive meeting ahead. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you very much, Her Excellency Millicent Cruz Paredes. The conversation of today's session brings to the table the gender stereotypes that are very much cemented in the society, and the recent achievements of women have demonstrated that women are equally capable and that their contributions offer ways in revisiting gender issues that need to be discussed today. And today we are very much honored to have two speakers who will shed light onto these issues. Allow me to introduce the very first speaker who will talk about linguistic sexism, survey of Filipino language in everyday communication. Our first speaker teaches Filipino language courses at the Department of Filipino and Philippine Literature, College of Arts and Letters, University of the Philippines-Diliman. He is also an affiliate faculty of the Faculty of Arts, UP Open University. He finished his BA and MA Philippine Studies and PhD Filipino in the same university. Currently, he is serving as the Associate Dean for Research, Creative Writing, and Publication of the College of Arts and Letters. Let us welcome Assistant Professor Dr. Jayson D. Petras.
All right. Thank you so much, Joey. Sawadee na kabrukon. Magandang araw sa ating lahat. Good day, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the Faculty of Arts, Chulalongkorn University, headed by Asst Dr. Suradek, for inviting me to be part of this webinar. I was supposed to give a lecture on sexism in Filipino language last year, but due to the pandemic and the lockdown restrictions, the Chula decided to cancel it. And I'm very grateful that Chula, with the help of my good friend Achan Verita, decided to continue this event, and this time it's bigger because they've extended the invite to our college, the College of Arts and Letters, University of the Philippines-Diliman, headed by Dr. Jimwell Naval, and with the support of the Philippine Embassy in Bangkok, headed by Ambassador Millicent Cruz Paredes. I'm excited to be part of this webinar personally because this is the closest I can get to Bangkok. I was in Bangkok in 2015 as a visiting professor researcher in the Faculty of Arts, Mahidol University. Also, it's more exciting because I'm not the only one speaking tonight, and because it's a conversation, it becomes a conversation now and sharing of thoughts between the Philippines and Thailand with Achan Porani, and also with two students, Lloyd and Wasupon. Okay, Lloyd is from our university, the UP, and Wasupon is from Chula. And also, I'm happy that Joey is the one moderating, or should I say, Dr. Joey Santos is the one moderating. Actually, he's the real expert in this field, and he can even answer questions for me later on, right? So let me share to you my screen. All right. Hope you can see it now. All right. Okay, so the title of my presentation is Linguistic Sexism, a survey of Filipino language and everyday communication. In my university, one of the general education courses that I handle is Filipino 40, which is Wika, Kultura at Lipunan, or in English, Language, Culture, and Society. And one of the topics that interest my students is our discussion on Filipino language, gender, and sexuality. For my lecture, I will focus on the things that we discuss in class, plus additional input on issues pertaining to gender and sexuality in the Philippine society. So this is not an empirical study, but more of a sharing of literatures pertaining to gender and sexuality in Philippine context. I divided my presentation into three parts. We will first talk about the terms sexism and linguistic sexism, just to have some grounding of the terms. Then we'll discuss how sexism is manifested in the Filipino language and society. And the last, we'll look into how issues are being raised and addressed, and also are developing with the current happenings relating to gender and sexuality. All right. So a lot of definitions have already been given with regards to sexism. So different books, different various definitions of what sexism is. According to Ellis and Murphy in 1995, sexism refers to valuing of one gender over the other, leading to the subordination and devaluation of women. While in the earlier definitions, just like the aforementioned, sexism is viewed in relation to the downgrading of the state of women if compared to men. Currently, the term is being used to refer to the ideas and practices that treat either sex in a manner that is indifferent or unfair. So the issue of sexism it's not just women, okay, but this time it's the treatment of all sexes, wherein at one sex, a particular or one gender is indifferent, are being treated unfair or indifferent. While we are being open to a wider spectrum of gender identities, particular types of sexism emerge, like cissexism, which is defined by Montclair State University LGBTQ Center as norms and behaviors that result from the assumption that all peoples are or should be cisgender, referring to a person who feels as if their biological sex matches their gender identity. And heterosexism, which refers to the norms and behaviors that result from assumption that all people are or should be heterosexual, referring to a person who is emotionally, romantically, sexually, affectionately, or relationally attracted to members of the opposite sex or gender. From this, it can be seen that anybody could be a victim of sexism. Meanwhile, linguistic sexism can be understood to be sexism that occurs in language, though opinions may vary on what constitutes a sexist language. Some might look at the etymology of words, while others might consider male generics in determining if utterance is sexist. In general, linguistic sexism consists of speech that perpetuates gender stereotypes and status differences. This can be learned at an early age and can be considered a linguistic habit. A lot of reasons can be pointed out as to why people use sexist language. According to Parks and Robertson in 1998 and Rusher in 2001, they may do so because one, it's traditional, two, it is difficult to change because it's already attached or ingrained to their written and spoken language. Three, people lack knowledge about sexist language. And four, they might be protecting established social hierarchies. From sexism and linguistic sexism, let's move on to the issue of gender and languages and the languages in the Philippines, in particular the Filipino language. Filipino and other languages in the Philippines, so we have more than 100 languages, so around 180 languages. And based on the study, these languages, plus the Filipino language, which is our national language, are usually considered as gender-neutral languages, compared to Spanish and English, which has sexual bifurcation in the third-person pronoun, like él and ella, and he, she, respectively. It is simply siya in Tagalog, or isu or isuna in Ilocano. Ilocano is one of the major languages in the Philippines in the northern Philippines. There's also a lot of nouns that do not have a distinct gender, like kapatid or kabsat. Kapatid is Tagalog and kabsat is Ilocano. and there's no equivalent single word for brother and sister. So in Filipino, we say, for brother, we say kapatid na lalaki, it's like male sibling, and kapatid na babae, female sibling, respect. All right. So likewise, asawa can refer to either husband or wife, though in Bisaya, bana is used for husband. In professions, native terms usually do not have gender, like manggagamot, manananggol, and guro. But for Spanish counterparts, because in Spanish, gender is grammaticized in Spanish, so they usually have o and a endings, which indicate the gender. Like in the case of manggagamot, it's in Spanish, though the spelling here is patterned to Filipino language because we also use these terms. So manggagamot is doctor or doktora. So doctor for male and doktora for female. Manananggol can be abogado for meaning lawyer. Male lawyer, abogado, and abogada, female lawyer, and guro or the teacher can be maestro, the male teacher, and maestra, the female teacher. Sometimes there are not endings but penultimas like manang and manong, which was derived from Spanish terms hermano and hermana. So like older sister, older brother, and then older sister. These observations can be used to prove that Filipino language and other languages in the Philippines are not directly sexist or misogynist. But how true it is, let's try to analyze. On her lecture entitled Sexism in Philippine Language, Reinforcement versus Resistance, last 2016, Dr. Pia Arboleda of the University of Hawaii in Manoa analyzed the perspective that the Filipino language is non-sexist. From her study of words and definitions in the primary Filipino monolingual dictionaries, she concluded that the definitions of words that show sexual stereotypes and patriarchal values are still maintained in these dictionaries. At one point, it is also a reflection of how words are still used in society and media, for example, in drama series, in a way that favors one gender. I followed the study of Dr. Arboleda, and in some examples that I will share, you can see how words that should have been neutral are defined in a way that reflects patriarchal ideas. Let us first check the definition of babae, female, and lalaki, male in dictionaries. According to Diksyonaryo ng Wikang Filipino or Dictionary of Filipino Language published by the Commission on National Language, in line with the centennial celebration of Philippine independence in 1998, babae or the female refers to tao o hayop na ang kasarian ay ukol sa pagiging ina. Or in English, person or animal whose sex is maternal. From this, we can see what seems to be a prescription for female, that is to be a mother, and not being so makes her less of a female. What's more problematic is the given definition stating karaniwang tawag sa babaeng kalaguyo o kinakasama ng lalaking may asawa. Or in English, a term usually referring to female lover or partner of a married man, or in short, mistress. Included in the definition is a sample sentence, si Maria ay babae lamang ni Tomas. In English, Maria is only a mistress of Tomas. Though the lexicographers can claim that sexism is in the world and we just describe it, the presentation of this definition without marking that is pejorative is still problematic. Meanwhile, according to UP Dictionaryong Filipino, the dictionary Filipino dictionary in our university, the latest Filipino monolingual dictionary that we have in the Philippines actually is the UP Dictionary Filipino, which was published in 2010. That was a long time ago, but that's the latest. Lalaki refers to sex na kasarian ng tao o hayop sex na nakabubuntis o kasarian na nakabubuntis o nakapagdudulot ng bunga sa pamamagitan ng fertilisasyon o inseminasyon. In English, means sex that makes someone pregnant or produces fruit through fertilization or insemination. It has an implication of viewing the male as a source of life wherein millions of sperm coming from him are racing to reach the egg cell of a female, and the fastest or the most brute shall win. So the sperm race myth. Okay, so we can uh, connect the definition to that myth. Okay. Next, another set of examples are the words dalaga. In English, it's maiden, and binata, the bachelor. While it is true that dalaga refers to babaeng wala pang asawa or unmarried woman, the second definition also gives a prescription to the female that she should be walang dungis. It means chaste or virginal. This kind of image of a female being a mother, and this time for a virgin, is said to be rooted in the time of Spanish colonization, in particular to the time of Christianity, when Christianity was introduced, wherein institutionalization and idealization of femininity based on the Virgin Mary was done. On the other hand, there is no such interpretation to binata, bachelor, which was just referred to as lalaking may sapat na gulang at wala pang asawa or unmarried man. Also notice these attributes or adjectives that are attached to a particular gender. The word malandi or landi, in English it's flirty, is associated to the female with the definition babaeng nagsisikap makatawag ng pansin at pag-ibig ng mga lalaki. Woman trying to attract the attention and love of men. Or tawag sa babaeng magaslaw, kumilos at may saloobing mapanukso o mapangakit. Woman acting obscenely and seductively. Actually, anyone can be malandi. Even boys can be malandi, but the dictionaries attribute it to the females. On the other hand, the positive word ginoo or maginoo, roughly equivalent to gentleman, is an attribute that can be used for female and male in the past in Old Tagalog, but now is associated to male alone. In 2000, the book Men in Control, Filipino Male Views on Love, Sex, and Women, which was written by social psychologists from their studies in 4 rural areas in the Philippines, Lucban, Quezon, New Cuyo, Palawan, Marawi, Lanao del Sur, and Simunul, Tawi-Tawi. These are rural areas. Quezon is in Luzon, in northern Philippines. New Cuyo, Palawan, it's also in part of Luzon. While Marawi and Simunul is located in the southern part of the Philippines. So from these 4 images of Filipino women, Filipino men, from these 4 images of Filipino men were seen. 1 is the protector, 2 is dominator, 3 reactor, and 4 partner. Though the book was released 21 years ago, it was published in 2000, it can still be seen in general that there's still this kind of imaging of males. Let's start with the protector image of men. On the slide, you can see the characteristics, adjectives associated with men and women in this regard. According to Liwag et al. In 1997, Filipino boys are trained to be braver, matapang, brave, and stronger, malakas, to suffer in silence, hindi umiiyak, so boys can't cry, and to be more assertive and aggressive compared to girls. They are expected to defend themselves and the family honor. In line with this image is man's provider role. To work for the family's survival is his primary duty. A good husband and father is said to be one who provides for his family's needs. On the other hand, women are seen weak and in need of protection and attention of men. They are expected to stay home and perform household chores. As wives, they act as support systems to their husbands, and their main duty is to look after the welfare of their children. Such stereotyping also affects the views of the expected profession and becomes the reason why women are marked in jobs that require strength and smart decision making. For example, as police officer, in June 2016, there's this report published. Two lady cops, dalawang babaeng police. You can see it on the slide, the picture on the upper part, Okay, at dalawang babaeng pulis na pipisil na maging bahagi ng security ni Duterte, or two lady cops being eyed as members of Duterte's security. And as a doctor, in September 2020, there's this headline published. Southern Police District bumuo ng Special Investigation Task, the one below. The one below this one. Southern Police District bumuo ng Special Investigation Task Group na tututok sa pagkamatay ng isang babaeng doktor sa Pasay City. In English, Southern Police District created a Special Investigation Task Group that will be in charge on the death of a lady doctor, okay, in Pasay City. So females are marked in these professions. Dalawang babaeng police, two lady cops, and babaeng doktor, lady doctor. Next image is the dominator image. Most widely held male family roles are haligi ng tahanan, which in English it's pillar of home, and padre de familia, head of the family. As such, father has the final say in matters concerning the family, related to his function as a provider that seems to give him the right to determine what should and what should not be happening in the family. This includes the arena of sexual behavior, where initiation of marital sex is seen as masculine. On the other hand, women as wives play supporting role to their husbands and must submit themselves to the latter. That's why the term is magpasakop sa asawa. So you should submit yourself to your husband. They are not to assume headship in the family hierarchy. This kind of view about women is also brought in areas outside the home. One of the controversial topics in relation to this is the statement of President Rodrigo Duterte in this 2021 regarding the news that his daughter Sara Duterte would be running for presidency. According to Duterte, presidency was no job for women because of their emotional differences to men. Vice President Leni Robredo responded by saying that this kind of statement from the president doesn't help in promoting gender equality, and that he should be more careful, especially that he is the president of the land. Next is the reactor image. It says there, bakit di tutukain kung palay na ang lumalapit sa mano? Or in English, why not peck the rice grain? It's a metaphor. Why not peck the rice grain when it brings itself to the chicken? As a reactor, men's actions are mere consequences. That's why they just react to women to women's conduct. Okay. For instance, a male would engage in sex not because he wanted to, but because he was lured in by the temptress of a female. Remember the word malandi a while ago that we discussed a while ago. Also, women are the ones to be blamed, but why men inflict physical pain on them. Some examples given are when a woman falls short of what is expected of her, when she does things that threaten the male ego, like they are so bungangera or nagger, or when she goes beyond circumscribed rule. This can be related to the common beginning of the statement, kababae mong tao. Okay, you are a woman, and yet mentioned by our good ambassador a while ago. Kababae mong tao, or in English, you are a woman, and yet situations where women act differently from expected is what often provokes people to say it. For example, if a woman goes home late, you'd probably hear older people saying, kababae mong tao, gabi ka na kung umuuwi, or you are a woman and yet you come home late. One concrete example of this is the pamphlet released by the Angono Police Station in 2018, the one you can see on the slide, regarding ways on how a woman can avoid rape. On the said material, they gave 10 guidelines which included huwag magsuot ng maiigsing damit, or in English, do not wear revealing clothes. Huwag maglalakad ng mag-isa sa madilim na lugar, or avoid walking in dark places. At kung makikipag-date, huwag uminom ng alak. If you are on a date, do not drink alcohol. This is a clear case of victim blaming and gross misinformation on rape. In words of Gabriela Party List representative, Representative Arlene Brosas, this rotten mindset being perpetrated by the state authorities themselves certainly emboldens perpetrators to commit rape and further puts women in a difficult situation. And the president's machismo and misogyny feed into this rape culture. And short skirts and add a representative Brosas also added, short skirts and drinking don't cause rape. Rapists do cause rape. But one of the positive image of men that emerged in the study, it's a 2000 study, but there's this image, the last image is the men being a partner. Many domains of household decision making are now considered to be more egalitarian in nature. Also, there is an increasing number of men who are more involved in housework and child caring, especially when the wife works outside the home. In areas such as sex, men are now more conscious of the sexual needs of their wives. A test of manhood is the ability to maintain smooth marital relationship, or in our words, it's pagsusunuran ng mag-asawa. So, so they maintain this kind of smooth marital relationship. This implies that the completeness of being male is once maintaining a mutual recognition of equitability in the marital relationship. So even in rural areas where the study was conducted in 2000, there's this emerging image of man. So it's something positive, okay? Okay, so let's now move on to the topic of LGBTQ+. According to anthropologist Michael Tan, there's no equivalent Filipino term for the word sexuality, and instead we use the loan word in Spanish, sexualidad, but spelled in Filipino structure. Though we change the spelling a bit, based on the structure of our language. In relation to this, there is also no local term for other categories of sexual orientation, that is homosexual. We say homosexual, bisexual, and heterosexual. Interestingly, gender and sexual orientation also appears to be fused into same words or labels in Filipino culture, according to Ofreneo in 2000. Just a review, gender refers to a set of social, physical, and psychological and emotional traits often influenced by societal expectations that classify an individual as feminine, masculine, and androgynous, etc. On the other hand, sexual orientation refers to person's emotional, physical, sexual attraction to other people and the expression of that attraction. This can particularly be seen in terms bakla and tomboy. The fusion can be particularly seen in these two terms, bakla and tomboy. The word bakla is a contraction of the words babae at lalaki, which refer to men who are feminine, effeminate, and who cross-dress. Bakla is also usually used to specify the male homosexual or gay man. Probably because of this fusion, wherein bakla can be can refer to male homosexual gay man or males who are feminine and males who are feminine. The usual image of a gay man is a parloristang bakla, or the usual low-income gay men who work at a beauty parlor. They're often visible in the entertainment industry and gay beauty pageants. As you can see on the picture, on the one on top, saan there's this picture that says saan ang parlor mo, or where is your parlor? So it's a stereotype of what a bakla should look like. No, so they should usually they're seen as cross-dresser, and then they work in a parlor or in a beauty salon. Meanwhile, the middle class and upper class gay men self-identify themselves as gay, homosexual, or bisexual, making them distinct from the lower class parlorista. Also, the self-identified Filipino gay men who adopt more Western masculine gay identity are not identified as bakla, according to Tan in 1995. There's also what is called MSM, or men who have sex with men, a term coined with the AIDS pandemic to identify men through their sexual behavior. Through this, it becomes more politically correct rather than using bakla as if their identity or their being a bakla is the automatic source of AIDS. In total, the gay community in the Philippines is diverse, which can also be seen in the discussion of Garcia in his book Philippine Gay Culture Binabae to Bakla, Silahis to MSM in 1996. Tomboy is the generic term. On the other hand, tomboy is the generic term for females who are masculine and who cross-dress, or the butch lesbian that we know. Like in Bakla, tomboy is also used as a label for to refer to female homosexual or lesbian. Additionally, Filipino lesbians who are stereotypically feminine do not identify as tomboy, and instead they self-identify as lesbians and stress their womanhood that supposedly makes them different from the tomboys. According to Ofreneo, these are there are currently two subgroups of lesbians in the Philippines: those who identify as tomboy and those who identify themselves as lesbians. On the other, meanwhile, silahis is a Filipino indigenous term, according to Tan in 2001, that refers to a man who is erotically attracted to both males and females, possibly denoting the Filipino bisexual man. According to Garcia in 1996, different from bakla, which is more attached to gender expression than sexual orientation, because bakla is the idea of bakla is the parloristang bakla, so it's more of a gender expression. But silahis is a clearer term for person's sexuality or sexual orientation. On the other hand, there's no distinct term for Filipino female bisexual, making female bisexuality invisible. So we use the term silahis to refer to male bisexual, but we don't have a female term. No? So female bisexuality is invisible. Same with gay and lesbian. There are Filipinos who self-identify themselves as bisexual, not silahis. Due to the rise of BL series in the Philippines, thanks to the arrival of Thai BL series, particularly Together the series last year, which can be watched for free on YouTube with English subtitles. Later on, it will be acquired by the media giant ABS-CBN. It is interesting to see how can these kinds of series possibly shatter social norms and stereotypes through the depictions of the diversity of human relationships. One of the interesting books developed that discusses the issue of LGBTQ+ community in the Philippines is the book Anong Pangalan Mo sa Gabi, or At Iba Pang Tanong sa Mga LGBT, or in English, What is Your Name at Night and Other Questions to LGBT. It was published by the UP Center for Women's Studies together with UP Babaylan, the organization of LGBT students at the University of the Philippines. It contains pictures of LGBT holding usual questions that they receive from people, a number of which are in the form of jokes, while the others are serious, and it can be seen how these questions could be offensive. For example, the question on the title, Anong Pangalan Mo sa Gabi, or What is Your Name at Night, is usually heard being asked to men who are perceived to be gay, and giving a female name is a way to reveal and prove that he is indeed gay. So it's a joke, no? But it's an offensive joke. Some of the questions are, tanggap ka ba ng pamilya mo? This one, tanggap ka ba, sorry, this one, tanggap ka ba ng pamilya mo? Does your family accept you? Sinong kumpanya ang tatanggap sa'yo? Will there be a company that will accept you? Nagagamot ba yan? Can that be cured? Paano kayo dumadami? And then there's this follow-up question on that. Paano kayo dumadami? A statement, follow-up statement, like paano kayo dumadami? Hindi naman kayo nanganganak. No, how come you increase in number even though you don't give birth? Hindi ka ba natatakot sa impyerno? Aren't you afraid to go to hell? In the Philippines, no, just a note, in the Philippines, the prevalent concept of homosexuality is that of a sin based from Spanish Roman Catholicism, and sickness from the American biomedical model. So that's why we encountered questions like, hindi ka ba natatakot mapunta sa impyerno, or aren't you afraid to go to hell, or nagagamot ba yan? Can that be cured? Hindi ka ba natatakot magka-AIDS, no? Or aren't you afraid to have AIDS or to acquire AIDS? This one, anong gagawin mo kung may nakahubad na lalaki, babae sa harap mo? Or what will you do if a naked man-woman is in front of you? May seryosong karelasyon ba ang tulad mo? Do people like you can have serious partner relationship? And this one is, saan napupunta ang pera mo? Or where does your money go? Attached to these questions are answers that break stereotypes. For example, in the last question, saan napupunta ang pera mo? Or where does your money go? The stereotypical answer for this is that, or the expected answer, because it's a joke, is that the money goes to other men. Okay? But instead of showing this, the answer given in the book was a grocery list. One proof that money earned is used for necessities and not consumed just to buy attention and love of other men. To address issues of gender inequality and gender-based violence, women have come together under the banner of feminism. In the Philippines, feminism began in the promotion of women's rights. In 1880s, during the time of our national hero Jose Rizal, it was insisted that women should have the right to study. While in the 1930s, they fought for the right to vote. Over time, they advocate gender equality at work, at home, and in society in general. In the 1980s, women's NGOs or non-government organization became concerned with violence against women. From these remarkable breakthroughs have been achieved by the feminist movement, like having laws penalizing violence against women, setting up of women and child protection desks in police precincts and family courts, and the expansion of social services. In recent years, the focus of women's group is women's freedom of choice, like right to control own's body. Example of which is the reproductive health, right to be free of violence, and women empowerment through organizing, conscious raising, capacity building, and participation in decision making. Meanwhile, politicized gays and lesbians are said to have started in the 90s because of their desire to organize the ranks to talk about social acceptance and equal rights. LGBTQ plus organizations that pay attention to issues like self and community empowerment, legal rights, access to social services, conscious raising, education, economic rights, sexual, emotional, and mental health started to increase in number. Just last year, the term Philippines became a buzzword, which was coined from the Filipino diaspora in the US. It can be rooted from the 1970s English neologism mix, or MX, which is an alternative to Mr. and Miss, which is also the influence of the term Latinx, or Latinx. According to Filipino linguist Tuting Hernandez, it was coined as an alternative to Filipino or Filipina for those who do not identify with this binary. It also carries with it the histories, relations, and alliances of those who choose to own and identify with this label. Much has been said about the issue, and we may or may disagree on those points. However, it remains true that the issue about gender and sexuality is a complex issue, and changes in the society and the interconnection of social categories, or the intersectionality, will yield to assertion of identity or different identities. And of course, the SOGI bill previously filed in 2000 and has yet to pass in Congress. In fact, the SOGI bill equality or sexual orientation and gender identity or expression equality bill is the longest running bill under the Senate interpellation period and one of the slowest moving bills in Philippine history. It is a proof of how the struggle for equal rights of LGBTQ plus persists in the Philippines. So I just want to end my talk by saying that language is a witness to the events in our society. It contains our reality, which in turn is the basis of our consciousness and culture. In this regard, it's not only the language that must be liberating, but especially the society that creates and uses it. And that's it. Kumakap. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Assistant Professor Dr. Jayson Petras. Before we move on, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Her Excellency Millicent Cruz Paredes. Hello, good evening, ma'am. Thank you very, very much, Assistant Professor Dr. Jayson. Your talk has truly shed light on issues concerning gender, language, and media. That while the Filipino language may be gender neutral, the meanings of its words are still anchored on a patriarchal definition of what a woman is, what a man should be, and even more so, what an LGBTQ is. This unveils the very stereotypical role, society's expectation, and even, if I may emphasize, problematic identity imbricated between the binary and the non-binary. So the main takeaway of Dr. Jayson's talk is the gender issues are placed at the very core of the society, and that it is a high time to put serious attention to it. So we can not only unpack these issues, but also circumvent them to espouse a better society that is intended for all, regardless of gender orientation. And our next talk is going to talk more about issues concerning media in the Thai context. She will be speaking on the topic sexism and gendered oppression, an overview in contemporary Thai media. Our second speaker teaches gender, sexuality, and culture courses at the BA in Language and Culture program, where she serves as the Deputy Director for International Affairs. She likewise works as the Assistant Dean for the Internationalization of the Faculty of Arts. She holds a doctorate degree in Cultural Studies from Asst University in Japan. Her research interests include gender studies, Thai studies, media and cultural theories, body theories, and feminist thought. Please welcome Ajahn Dr. Parani Singh Plam.
Thank you so much, Joey. And if I may, I would like to share my screen. All right. Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm so honored to be here today speaking with you all this evening. And thank you again, Joey, for such a kind introduction. This evening, I would like to have a conversation with all of you about sexism and gender oppression and provide you with an overview of contemporary Thai media. And I'll be touching upon how news, entertainment industry, commercial sectors, and the state, and how they mediate selected messages, images, and present sexual minorities and gender diversity in certain ways that cohere with the rhetoric of, and I quote, tolerance, but not full acceptance. To begin with, the main questions that are important to address in this conversation are, how does the Thai society see gender and sexual matter, especially through various media platforms? Another question that we ought to ask is that, is there really a freedom or a liberation in representing sexualities, gender expressions, and sex characteristics? And I think these are a few preliminary questions to start off with. Just to give you a heads up, I am, as Joey mentioned, I am trained in cultural studies. So I am going to be looking at the issues of sexism and gender oppression through the holistic view. And of course, I'll be referring to media as a part of a wider discursive context that goes on to both reproduce and re-elaborate notions towards diversity in terms of genders and sexualities. I'll also discuss further in the sections to follow that there is a stark opposition in terms of surface image as opposed to the lived realities or lived experiences of sexual minorities and gender diversity. Now, with this said, these are the points of discussion for today, which would include an overview of LGBTQ+ or sexual minorities and gender diversity in Thai society, sexism and gender oppression, the mainstream sex/gender or paid ideology, and then the questioning of the value of the positive images. And the reason why I would like to emphasize the last issue on positive images is because generally we see advertisements, campaigns that support and endorse gender diversity. For instance, the first one is by the Tourism Authority of Thailand, or TAT's Go Thai Be Free campaign directed towards LGBTQ visitors. And I quote directly from this campaign, the Kingdom of Thailand welcomes LGBTQ community with pride. We also see here the proliferation of boy love culture, and as well as the representation of women who love women in the media industry. We also see the visibility of diverse gender identities in politics. On the left-hand side, for instance, the dissolved Future Forward Party's ex-member of Parliament, MP, Kun Golf Tanwarin, and their intention to drive the legal change that would favor and acknowledge actual diversities. Or Kun Pauline Nampring on your right-hand side, the politician who previously ran for the prime minister position. And all of these show that on a certain level, gender diversity is being recognized in our society, in Thai society. In order for us to understand why various media platforms portray the stories and lives of gender diversity in a certain way, or how do the manifold representations of gender diversity and minorities reflect, connect, and deviate from the actual situation of gender diversity, I think it is important that we take a look at an overview of LGBTQ+ in Thai society. From the mediated messages seen earlier, from the TAT campaign to the media industry and to the gender of governance, it must be noted that there is a complex and a contradictory situation for gender diversity individuals and how they are portrayed in the media. What we see from the way in which these media platforms portray gender diversity are that first, there is a gap between outward appearance and the lived realities of the individuals who do not identify with the mainstream gender identities. Second, what we need to focus on is that despite the seemingly accepting appearance and visibility of gender diversity in the media, there are systematic ways sexual minorities and gender non-normative individuals are excluded and that they are rejected the rights and treatments they ought to receive. There is, in a word, an institutionalized discrimination, prejudices, and animosity directed towards gender identities and sexual orientations that do not fall into the normative ideal in Thai society. So as a result, what we saw in the TAT campaign, the popularity of boy love culture or the news portraying the progress of gender diversity in the parliament, all of these, some studies would instead point out that the mediated messages of gender diversity actually undermine the lived realities or lived experiences of non-normative SOGI, or the term that Professor Jayson was using, sexual orientation and gender identity. So be they through, for example, laws and policies. The fact that laws still do not recognize same-sex couples, which would go on to result in same-sex partners who cannot sign for hospital documents, for example, nor can a spouse of a same-sex partner gain benefits from their careers. Social and cultural attitudes, for instance, would stem from the dominant ideology that governs the material practices. These attitudes are founded upon the mainstream paid ideology, of which I will be talking about next, that prioritizes two sexes, two genders, and one sexuality. Now, in terms of religion, which will go on to impact how the society views, expects, and at times devalues deviant types of gender identities and sexual expressions. Employment and education that continues to exist in all levels of employment culture and educational culture, where attitudes and practices that are obsolete, traditional, and discriminating still exist. In fact, a study done by ILO, or International Labor Organization, even mentions about the, and I quote, ghettoization of employment for transgenders, end quote, where we see transgender individuals working in a specific career choice, or that they are provided with very limited stereotypical choices of jobs, or that they have very little to almost no access to employment opportunity, depending upon their capital resources. In terms of family, the rhetoric of you can be whatever you want so long as you are a good person and a moral person, and acceptance that is very much, that is very inherently conditional. The media too often only portrays the stereotypes of diverse gender identities and sexual orientations through tropes and rigid categorizations, such that of being comical, being obsessed with beauty, or having craze for men. Now, in addition to the overview of how media portrays gender diversity, the study entitled Tool for Change, done by a collaboration between the UN and Budapest University, zeroes in on how the portrayal of gender diversity reflects an overall lack of acceptance within the wider society. And in this study, it is observed that the portrayals of lesbians, for example, are often degraded as overtly sexual. Gay men's depiction often associates with beautification or at times sexuality that is often linked with the possibility of transmitting diseases. Bisexuality is presented as sexually promiscuous, while transgender individuals are portrayed as social problems and deviants away from the norms. They are portrayed as comical, and they are portrayed as sexually obsessed. These negative representations actually would go on to cover queer individuals as well. Now, the stereotypical depictions undeniably play an important role in the conserving and as well as legitimizing the discrimination and stigma around diverse sexual orientations and gender identities. So let us take a look at some of the recent examples from the news coverages. Now, these news stories headline sexual identities by accentuating gender and sexual identifications. The emphasis is on the sensationalizing tropes and stereotypical characters of sexual minorities, rather than educating or providing productive information. Now, these selected news, therefore, only undermine their humanity and flattening out their humane characters in the process. The news on the top reads, "Woman who loves women couple found dead in a canal, suspected to be suicidal attempt." Another at the bottom reads, 30 policemen taken aback while raiding gay sex party amid COVID-19. Now, it is undeniable that these news underscore the sexual orientations and sexualities that are non-normative and most definitely ones that do not align with the heteronormative gender identities. Now, the fact that attempted suicides or sex party are elaborated by no less sexually deviating practices reflect the general attitudes towards sex/gender identity, whether it be from the political economy side, the writers of the news themselves, or the expected majority of the audience, of whom are thought to be cisgender or heterosexual individuals. In the process, the mediated messages would go on to perpetuate the othering process and legitimizing the stigma being placed upon diverse sexual orientations and gender identities. At other times, however, the representation of sexual minorities would gain popularity and garner debate on the entertainment industry for several reasons. The narrative of the relationship that falls into the heterosexual trope, meaning that there is a more masculine actor or characteristic, or more effeminate actor or characteristic within the show itself. Stereotypical characteristics such as these leave varieties and differences that may exist under the non-normative sexual and gender identities. Or that the portrayal of the homosexual couple on screen is merely that, it's simply that, a representation on screen that does not cohere with the actors' real lives. This is also a case in point where, Goff, who plays a role, as we're seeing here, in A Man Who Loves a Man on screen, does in fact have a heterosexual relationship. Now, this further engages the audience, right, in the questioning of the sexual orientation of the actors of choice. Now, this brings to the forefront about the way in which broadcasted media may or may not be a liberating platform to transgress beyond the trope of female/male dichotomy, or at other times in the portrayal of the same-sex couple. One often is portrayed as having a much more masculine side, while the other is associated with a more feminine or effeminate gendered trait. Now, another aspect that is crucial to note on the overview of sexual minorities in Thai society is how women's sexuality is being oppressed and chastised just because they are women. Now, there is a speculation that contrary to how Thai society has been dubbed as gay paradise, there is an evident restraint, evident constraint being placed upon women, and worse, on women who love women. Now, this news in particular represents how parts of Angkan Klumpong, the series, were cut due to the kissing scenes. These kissing scenes and other scenes, including women's kisses on shoulders, parts of their lingerie being exposed on screen, or that their bare back may be revealed to the audience, all of these are cut because these scenes can be considered immoral and wrongful. Now, certainly, this raises debate amongst audiences of the show, of whom are quick to point out, and I'm going to be translating just some of the comments. For instance, how is it that there are rape scenes on broadcasted TV? How is it that Men Who Love Men series are shown without being censored? And how is it that Thai society is named as open and as a gay paradise? And when in reality, the censoring team of the channel, or the in medias term, the producer of the channel, has all the says in what can or cannot be shown. Now, the production team assures its audience that the uninterrupted version can be watched online, a platform that can somewhat evade draconian rule of what is considered apt and what is considered sanctioned. Now, another instance where oppression towards, being women in Thai society is supported by the sexist system is manifested in none other than the criticism made towards the ex-Prime Minister Yingluck. For instance, this news that addresses what Yingluck's fate says about sexism in Thailand. The previous female PM was left to navigate Thailand's sexism and deeply rooted patriarchal society in her time in the office and afterwards. Now, especially after her leaving the country following the rice subsidy scheme scandal, numerous sexist insinuations are being used by politicians and academics alike. Devalued words against women were used in the political climate, which reflects the attitude of the politicians who use those themselves. Now, if the public agrees to accept this, then it also reflects the attitude, of course, it's partial attitude of the society, and worse, this becomes trivialized matter because of the political stance and political ideology, which leaves the sexist remark and the elements that maintain the sexism in the society intact. This is nonetheless evident in the news article where factors elucidating her biological femaleness, her sexuality, and her family are being criticized, coupled with her political stance and ideology. Now, the political dissidents topple the need to rid of sexist remarks, so much so that the writer of this article claims, and I quote, where her male predecessors received political ridicule, Yingluck experienced sexual objectification. Now, it is imperative to consider the governing ideology which lies behind the values attached to a particular sex, gender, and sexuality in Thai society, of which brings me to the second part of our conversation, which is sexism and gender oppression. The way in which the media we have seen throughout the many slides do not simply exist on their own, but they reflect the backgrounds in the level of knowledge and in the level of the shared belief. And what set of information the individuals are inculcated or educated to believe as the norm, as the mainstream, and as the deviance. I draw after Chonvilai and Bunmongkon's work in the book titled Thai Sex Talk, that Thai society is governed by the system of two sexes, two genders, and one normative sexuality, which are female and male, femininity, masculinity, and heterosexual sexuality. Now, there is a belief that the individuals who birth as a female ought to have feminine gender identity, and likewise for masculine gender identity. Now, this biological deterministic view would go on to govern not only individuals' gender expectation, but also sexuality. Sexual practice that is considered normative, and that is the desire towards opposite sex under the heterosexual normativity. Now, as a result of the dominant sex/gender ideology or paid ideology in Thai society, these are some of the outcomes that can be expected. The value of masculinity is being upheld, the prescribed roles and expectations placed upon women, the reproduction of patriarchal ideology, but not only this places expectation upon women, men alike bear pressures from the societal anticipation just because of their sexed bodies. Now, this results in those who deviate from the dichotomous pair, that is feminine women or masculine men, to be deprived of rights, benefits, and worse, intangible devaluation and stigmatization that takes time to rid of, and we are talking about cultural attitudes. Now, this mainstream ideology maintains its status through the mechanism of institutionalization, be they through, as I mentioned prior, legal means and practices, religious teachings, and even education. In today's time, however, we are witnessing more and more diversity in terms of gender identities and sexual orientations and sex characteristics, both in small groups on the new media platform that I'll mention about next, or in terms of making calls for sexual rights. These calls for rights really show that the dominant sex/gender ideology or paid ideology is very difficult to be maintained. Oppression made towards diverse genders and sexualities can be argued to stem from the institutionalized practices that are the product of the mainstream paid ideology. Oppression and sexist practices made towards non-mainstream genders and sexualities would include, for instance, violations of rights, violence in all forms addressed to both women and sexual minorities. The news you are seeing on your right-hand side shows sex workers who are directly affected by COVID-19 pandemic, for instance. But because of their line of work, women, men, and gender diversity alike are being deprived of any hope. So as can be seen, it is clear that the mainstream discourse on sex/gender ideology or paid ideology is linked to societal problems. In reality, people actually manifest gender identities and sex characteristics that are ever-changing. This points out a direct challenge against the dominant discourse. They unveil how unstable the discourse can be and the reason why it must be maintained by the institutions for it to thrive in the society and, more importantly, in the modes of reproduction. Now, with this said, it brings me to the last section of our conversation, which is on positive images. Now, in contemporary times, there is an increase in the representation of diverse genders and sexualities on the new media platform. And I'll give you, some examples from these. The one you're seeing here on the bottom, Nesti Spritesy, right? A Thai net idol from Phang Nga province, the southern part of Thailand, who rose to fame and popularity from doing their Facebook Live. And Nesti is known to be a very skilled and talented in doing makeup, right? Apart from that, the YouTube channel on the top right, the YouTube channel Pha Thơ Klap Ban, right? I believe the literal translation would be I'll take you home on YouTube. The host, Cha, would take their guests to the intended destination, be they to work or to their homes after their workouts, for instance. So in it, it features casual talks ranging from topics such as the guests' current works, gender issues, and even politics. We also see a show named Woody Show, the one on the top left. The Woody Show that is hosted by an openly identified gay man, Woody himself, pictured together here with another famous openly identified gay TV person, Motdam. So people nowadays are finding more and more opportunities to speak up rather than being spoken for. That there are, as the previous slide reads, gender diversity that reflects the deconstruction of the assumption of homogeneity within these groups, be they women, men, gay, and etc. That within these categorical identities, there exist differences. So on your right-hand side, we have a net idol, Phra Maha Thevi Chao Han Muang Thip, right, from page Bean on Facebook. The acclaimed most famous net idol from the South, who takes the society by such force that whatever she does is being commoditized and popularized by the public. We also see Nong Chat, who is Thailand's famous makeup artist and as well as an entrepreneur, both of whom represent the way in which neoliberal rationale brings about the grammar of individualism, in that you can become successful and as well as, you can exercise your own agency. And in this case, it is your gender identity as well. So in this part, I would like to spend a brief amount of time discussing about the values of positive images. I think it is crucial for us to reconsider the messages that are being reproduced in this increased visibility. And I draw upon Catherine Sender's work entitled No Hard Feelings, that various factors such as access, participation, self-expression, audience, profit, globalization, to name only but a few, all play a role in considering gender diversity's representation. The central question as proposed by Catherine Sender is that the modes of production, distribution, and access made by diverse audience, and I quote, demand that we think not only the value of visibility and an investment in positive images, end quote. But at the same time, we ought to look at how diverse gender identities and sexual orientations represent themselves in the public. These factors, Catherine Sender writes, are dependent upon available resources or how those media are funded. So the central question becomes how much of a constraint, how much of a restraint LGBTQ+ representations or gender diversity contents can be produced, disseminated, and accessed. Now, generally, the professional center consists of a very well and solid financial support, large audience, which often reflects the mode of production that tends to appeal to the heterosexual audience. The examples would be the portrayals of mainstream TV series, broadcasted TV shows, or the many boy love series we see today. Media produced at the margin, on the other hand, is less funded and allows for more audience involvement, such as the semi-professional production of Pha Thơ Klap Ban that I was showing you earlier, allowing for both the guests' full participation and their views towards society, sexualities, and politics, for instance. Media produced at the periphery is most dispersed on new media technologies and use this platform as a method of distribution. Now, media at the periphery often provides more diversity, fluidity, and wider spectrum of LGBTQ+ individuals. Examples could be Ying Li, Phra Maha Thevi Chao that we saw, or Nesti Spritesy, for instance. Now, due to the visibility and positive representations of diverse gender identity and sexual orientations on the new media, Catherine Sender too raises a point on structural limits. by questioning first the technological determinism that on one hand, it can be used to represent gender diversity and the way in which genders or sexualities do not only consist of the normative ones, and that within the diversity, there is spectrum, capabilities, and so much more that the stereotypical images usually represent. At the same time, the representation seen on the new media also risks, and I quote, banishing difficult feelings to the margins of queer experience, end quote. Now, where those who are well-to-do are celebrated, which goes on to widen the gap between LGBTQ plus or queer at the margin, widen the gap in terms of inequality and even lift violence through various forms done to gender and sexual minorities. So much so that sometimes, and I quote her again, queer reflexivity is suspended in time between painful past and an optimistic future, end quote. Now, what happens in this case is that the structural limits may risk eradicating shared traumatic pasts and oppressed histories that queer individuals at the margin are fighting for instance. Now, despite the increase in visibility of diverse gender identities and sexual orientations, there is another point that needs to be reconsidered, and that is the idea of queer autonomy. And I drew this after Peter A. Jackson's work on Queer Bangkok. This point specifically raises the question of the celebrated few. The news message here shows that transgenders also deserve the pronouns according to their chosen gender identities. However, this questions the root of the problem, and that is the sex-based identity. We are documented since birth. Our bodies are categorized into the dichotomy right after nativity, right after birth. This news right here speaks up and speaks against the mainstream normative sexes, genders, and sexuality we have looked at earlier. Now, this requires a few things, namely economic resource, cultural capital, and a transformation that is deemed fit to be seen, to be able to categorize into the either or either woman or man. Queer autonomy or autonomy granted to diverse SOGI is in fact contingent upon diverse factors intersecting one another at the risk of reiterating the binary opposition. Now, another point that should be noted regarding the positive images of gender diversity is about queer past. There shouldn't be any opposition or animosity towards the prevalent media on gender and sexual diversity at all. However, in today's times, it is also important to acknowledge the need for political mobility. This is something that Catherine Sender also highlights, and in her words, and I quote, homophobic portrayals can simply be replaced by positive images, and that correspondingly, shame can be overwritten by pride, end quote. So in the new media and recently, the coverages of diverse gender identities and sex characters must be portrayed through the narrative of positivity that they had overcome their past. So in the case of A. Claire Tupa, for example, on your right-hand side, a Thai beauty blogger born and bred in Kong Tui, who overcame the intersected oppression, and that is her social class, economic capital, and as well as being different in her gender expression. In a word, within the pervasiveness of diverse gender and sexual identities on the new media, there is certainly ways for the individuals to make their self-transformation, to exercise their agency, and to certainly gain income by being visible on the social media platform. Yet, what we are facing right now is the visibility, the majority of it, of the selected few. Those who have the bodies and gender expressions that are deemed fit to be seen. This altogether begs the reconsideration of the positive images regarding diversity in genders and sexualities. So what I have done thus far is to look at the overview of diversity in genders and sexualities in Thai society. I have explained a wider discursive practice that contributes to the sexist system and oppression towards gender and sexual minorities by looking at different kinds of media and mediated messages, all of which represent the juxtaposition between the mediated messages, be they positive or negative, in opposition to the lived realities or lived experiences of the individuals. And I think I would like to leave off and for us to think further is perhaps, the tension between the ability to exercise one's self and agency that is enabled by resources. This, I think, can have the potential to create the cult of homogeneity. I mean, if you could refer to the news of transgender individuals that I was showing earlier, the fact that there might be a risk to reiterate and reify the gender polarization, the need to choose between the either or in terms of legal rights. Nonetheless, in their ability to create their new self, their new gender identities, gender diverse individuals that I have selected as part of our conversation today does disclose the fact that the dominant paid or sex/gender ideology in Thai society, one that is shared, one that is internalized by some of us and is enforced by the institutional level, is very, very difficult to be maintained. Hence, we see time and time again the contestation, we see challenges, we see negotiations that emerge in the society and particularly in the media. And I'd like to end with this photo here taken from the news coverage, which is translated as the day that we don't have the news about diverse genders and diverse sexualities. That day is the day where everyone is treated equally. So we have to work our way to get there. So with that said, thank you for your attention. I would hand this back to Joey.
Thank you very much, Ajahn Dr. Parani. And I think what you have just delivered really shed light on several issues. First, that the authenticity of representations of the LGBT community in media is indeed a serious issue, as media plays a significant role in society. Likewise, the pervasive masculine ideology has been a core concern in society, and the devaluation of women being made inferior and be chased upon needs to be addressed for the society to keep up with the changing landscape of the social cultural dimension of it. And it is imperative to put stress on the role of media in influencing culture and normalizing certain gender identities and issues. Thank you very much, Ajahn Dr. Parni, for that wonderful talk. At this point, we would like to welcome our student reactors who will be leading the discussion from this point onward. So let us welcome, let me share my screen. We will be joined today by two students. We have Wasupon Trongrirat, who is a BA Language and Culture student from the BALAC program of Chulalongkorn University. We also have Rafael Lloyd C. Domingo, who is a BA Filipino and Philippine Literature student from the University of the Philippines-Diliman. Hello, Golf and Lloyd.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, everyone. Magandang gabi po.
All right, so before we proceed to the main discussion lead, I would like to pose a question based on what we have listened to. Maybe we can start with Lloyd. So Lloyd, what are your general insights on the gender, media, and language in the Philippines? And, as a native Filipino speaker, which of the points discussed still reflect in the Philippines? And if you have any additional points you would like to add to that, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone, again. The study of Dr. Jayson Petras regarding sexism in the Philippines is very timely and relevant due to it can be observed that many of the Filipinos, especially those who are outside of the university, lack understanding and knowledge that the language that they were using in their daily conversation is sexist, which remarks as disrespect on someone's sexuality. The existence of sexist words, phrases, and even metaphors in the Philippine languages can be considered a poison in the consciousness of everyone. The colonization in the Philippines is one of the root causes of the problem in our language. With that, the study of Dr. Petras would be one of the markers so that we can be aware of how we use our language and educate our countrymen regarding this issue to achieve a country with more than 100 languages free from sexism. We have seen in the presentation how dictionaries issued by the Komisyon sa Wikang Filipino 1998, or the Commission on Filipino Language, and UP Dictionary in Filipino 2010, how unfairly these dictionaries define the word babae, lalaki, dalaga, malandi, and ginoo. These definitions transcends in our beliefs and perspective, even during this present time, To see men are matapang, brave, malakas, strong, agresibo, aggressive, and breadwinner, while women were viewed as mahina, weak, mahinhin, modest, and maramdamin, emotional. Furthermore, it is the perfect time to reevaluate and to check how different institutions interpret our words. For additional insights, in my opinion, different professions, especially lexicographers, teachers, media practitioners, should be more aware of gender sensitivity issues so that we can define words with proper meaning and context. Institutions such as Komisyon sa Wikang Filipino, Commission on Filipino Language, through the help of the Department of Education and Commission on Higher Education, should maintain their enthusiasm in checking dictionaries and books regarding the perception of different gender and sexuality.
Thank you very much, Lloyd. That's a very wonderful point that you've raised. At this point, I would like to invite Golf or Wasupon to share with us his thoughts. What are your general insights on the gender, media, and language in Thailand? And as a native Thai speaker, which of the points discussed you think reflect in Thailand, and any additional insights that you want to raise? Go ahead, Golf.
Thank you. Thank you, Ajahn, and Dr. Horny, and also Dr. Jayson for sharing with us, also Lloyd. So my thought about this topic is that I think most of the platforms, especially in the media, since today we're talking about gender, media, and language, so I think most of the media is still, mediated in many terms, especially in terms of media representations in Thailand, and also in legal section as well. So during my studies in the BALA programs, I study about, I focus my paper on beauty pageant, and I think that's something we as Thai and also the Filipinos can share some thought on this, because we can see that the idea of feminisms and other gender as well, for the non-binary and also LGBTQ plus communities, love watching this show so much. And that's a part of the popular culture that we are endorsing. And that's a part of the culture that we question at the same times. That was Ajahn Parni always, teach me, or, always want me to question all the media and everything in our life. So I think most of the platforms are still mediated, even though it claims that it promotes the right to our community. We can see that women themselves enjoy their rights if they think that suit them. And that's the idea of post-feminism, right? When they think that their right is achieved and everything is complete. But I think based on my understanding, both in my country, Thailand, and also in the Philippines, I think it's still a very subjective thing to think about. My understanding or my comprehension of this is that we need to have more empathy, especially on differences on gender, language, and media. We are too fast to judge, and we're too fast to label things. So we need to do these kind of things. And I have read most of the questions and also comments that most of you posted on the chat box. I really enjoy it. And I really love that I'm being a part of this and I'm part of the change. And I think we just need more spaces to talk. And I'm so grateful to be a part of this conversations. And I hope it continue in every communities. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Golf. I think you made a very clear point there that our lived experiences truly influence the way we interpret things. And that goes along with labeling, and language is a very much concretized evidence on our thoughts. So I think at this point, it's a very good start to really get this discussion rolling. And I would like to have our speakers to join us. And of course, Lloyd as well in the spotlight. And I'll be back on the back seat. And you guys can go on and continue the conversation as regards this. So let's have Ajan, Dr. Porani, and we have Dr. Jayson and Lloyd to be part in the spotlight. I can be on the back seat. So perhaps Golf, would you like to start raising your questions to Ajan, Dr. Porani?
Yes, so since I think most of you may know already that I'm a big fan of beauty pageant. So this question is not posed to just Ajan Bernie, but I think this question posed to all of you, two questions. So my thesis questions about my past paper in Ajan Bernie class is that, does Miss Universe or beauty pageant actually be a great platforms for post-feminism or women empowerment? So I want to hear the thought from all of you, Filipinos as well, because we're a big fan of Miss Universe and beauty pageants. Some of us think that it promotes the equal rights and all this stuff, but some of us have opposing views. So I want to hear the idea from all of you, and that's something we want to hear because it's conversational, and that's our objective here. Yeah.
There are some comments already in the chat room. Wasapon, would you like to read that out as well, since with regards to beauty pageant? Oh wait, no, that's actually it's still the discussion on sex and gender. Okay, but I mean, the audience at home, if you would like to voice your opinion, because I think both of our nations really are, true fans of beauty pageants, and it will be, great for us to actually exchange our ideas interactively. So if you would like to voice your opinion, you are free to unmute yourself.
Any takers from the crowd who would like to share? I think Thailand and the Philippines are the biggest fans in terms of beauty pageantry. And we couldn't really discount the discussion on that, as it represents it takes a big chunk in the gender and sexuality issues. So anyone who would like to take part, go ahead and unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and you may start sharing.
Could I maybe call upon one of our audiences?
Sure.
June, would you like to say a little bit more about how you view beauty pageant as sports? Please, I mean, if you want to.
Okay, can you
Thank
hear me
you.
now?
Yes.
Okay, so as a queer woman, that I feel like Miss Universe is kind of like sport event somehow, and watching like the big Miss Universe is like Olympic for many of queer community, even like cis straight women as well. Like even this year, when Amanda like went to US, and even though it's middle of pandemic, it's kind of like everyone just gathering up, like woke up so early to see her on the stage. Just like when we wait to see, the Olympic game somehow. And also I was quite lucky because I work as a press. So I get to see, attend like Miss Universe, also Miss Grand as well. And also see how the fan has been inspired by, I'm not sure how to say, it's kind of like the subculture of watching the beauty pageant, like how many learn the new language, and for them, this kind of like, you can say like a fandom or like this subculture have been like safe space among LGBT or people in marginalized community somehow. So I think, of course, there would be discussion on the mainstream whether this is like not really empower like the true feminism or whatsoever. But from my experience, what I experienced from many of my friends, and also what I saw upon when I get to visit like, the pageant life, how that it also have another impact that is maybe not, how I say, like it's not tangible thing that you may experience, but I feel like it's how to say, it's kind of, I really understand how a lot of people have been like a big fan of beauty pageant, and a lot of them would be ready to argue that it's actually empower a lot of like queer community like to be themselves. And I think now that LGBT message also been introduced and be discussed on like the platform of the beauty pageant itself. So I think it's very crucial way. I think it's still crucial in the way, even though a lot of people feel like beauty pageant is like too old school. Yeah.
Thank you, June. Thank you for your insight. We in addition to that, I think what we need to reconsider in terms of like the beauty pageant is the rhetoric of empowerment and how elusive it could be, right? Because whether or not it is empowered, that is the central topic to be reconsidered, right? Given the values that is placed upon the sexed body, or a very strict gender body that is required by the pageantry itself, right? Okay. And earlier we have one audience,
I think it's
Alonso.
Alonso, right?
Alonso, yes, please.
Hi, I'm Alonso. I'm from UP Diliman, but currently I'm also studying at Chiang Mai University. When it comes to beauty pageants, and on the question of empowerment, well, I do agree that historically, like beauty pageants have been criticized for on the question of empowerment, and mostly affording male gaze, subjecting women to male gaze on who's, I mean, the winners of pageants are mostly are the ones who are like attractive or like very womanly in the eyes of men. But historically, it has been progressing, it has been evolving, and I would say that this change happened when more women and more gender and sexual minorities are taking up space in organizing and even judging these beauty pageants. And even, for example, in Miss Universe organizations, they're already removing height requirements and even allowing trans women to join and to participate. And this is one thing that I'm very much passionate about when people are talking about trans women. Well, I am cisgendered, but I do believe that trans women are women. And even if people would say that why allow them to join the Miss Universe if there are other pageants that accommodate trans women or that are solely for trans women. And I would say on that even if there are these pageants for trans women are made mostly to to bring awareness that trans women exist, trans women are women, and these pageants ultimate goal are to be obsolete eventually, and just let trans women join Miss Universe or a stage or a platform that is historically afforded to cisgendered women. And isn't it the goal of trans women to be recognized as women? Isn't the best way to recognize trans women as women if we allow them to join pageants or competitions that are for cisgendered women? I think that for me that thinking goes as well to Olympics, when we should also allow trans women to join the women's category in the Olympics, and I think that happened already. Thank you.
Thank
Ajahn
you.
M, sorry, can I answer the question posed by Kim Joshua Dano?
Yes,
It's
yes, please.
it was addressed to me. Well, you can see it on the chat box. The usage of definition of the words like babae, dalaga, etc. No, are there ways or efforts being done by both parties to address these sexist remarks? I don't know if you can, if you encountered last year, Oxford English Dictionary was criticized because of their definition of women. In their definition, they put the word bitch as one of the synonyms of the word woman, and petitions were created. Online petitions were created at that time, and in late last year, around October, November, they amended the definition. So they removed the word bitch in the definition of woman. It's easier said than done in the case of the Philippines because, as you can see, we don't have the capacity financially and logistically to do quick amendments, just like what Oxford English Dictionary did, let alone create new editions of these dictionaries. As we have seen, the UP Dictionary in Filipino, the last publication of UP Dictionary in Filipino was in 2010, and the one by Commission sa Wikang Filipino, the Dictionary ng Wikang Filipino, was in 1998. So, and also, unlike Oxford English Dictionary, they have online version of that. In the case of our dictionaries, our monolingual dictionaries in the Philippines, everything is hard. It's in hard copy, so it's difficult to. And if you want to have access to that, you can buy the dictionary, but it's so expensive for ordinary students. So most students, they access these dictionaries through public through their libraries. So it's, of course, we just have to wait for the next edition to be published. Of course, we're it's also it's a good opportunity that we're having this kind of conversation also, and we can push this with the commissions of Wikang Filipino, with the UP dictionary, with UP as well, to be more careful in the way they define words. No, I'm currently part of the UP Monolingual Dictionary project, so we're coming up with a new version of the dictionary, and I will push this, the observations that I had to the team, and we just have to wait for the next edition to be published.
Right. I think, Ajahn, we can welcome one more question before we conclude the session. Yeah. I
May
think
I ask a question, please?
Sure, go on. Yes, please.
Okay. Good evening and congratulations, and thank you so much to our speakers and to our panel of students. Dr. Pani mentioned a while ago that the Kingdom of Thailand welcomes or embraces LGBTQ. Now, I would like to find out if does Thai constitution have specific provisions positive on the human rights of LGBTQ? Can you cite one? Otherwise, do you think it's important? Thank you.
Yes. In fact, Thailand actually had published a Gender Equality Act back in 2015. However, it still only addresses the two sexes, right? Man and woman. So we are actually working towards to have, for instance, the same-sex marriage bill to be passed. So we actually have a long way to go, and if you could refer to the campaign that I was showing you earlier, I think that one even if it is being advertised by the governmental authority, which is the tourism authority of Thailand. However, it does to me, if it is from my own perspectives, it actually creates a juxtaposition or the difference between the surface image of we welcome everyone, that we celebrate the diversity. However, in reality, even same-sex partner can even get the legal recognition if they wish to get married. So there is always the statist level of being fully accepting, but this has to be in quotation, because they do accept so long as it creates, for instance, profit maximization for the country and so on and so forth. However, in the lived experiences or lived realities, we are not quite close there yet. So we have a long way to work towards that.
For clarification, my question earlier was, does your Thai constitution have specific provisions? Now, I would like to follow it up with, do you have specific legislations to enact legislations with implementing rules and legislated laws with IRR, with implementing rules and regulations?
That would protect gender diversity and sexual minorities?
LGBTQ.
Not yet. Not
yet.
Yes.
But the other one,
Gender Equality Act.
Yes. Do they have, or do you have implementing rules and regulations? Implementing rules and regulations.
For LGBTQ plus?
For a specific implementation of Gender Equality Act, is there implementing rules and regulations?
With this one, I mean, if the audience at home could help me answer, because this one is specifically on legal acts, right, that we are talking about. So if the audience who are from this field in particular, if you can, share your maybe experience of reading of this particular implemented laws and legislation somewhere in Thai society, you're more than welcome to do so. Would Joey like to say something earlier?
Sorry, Ajahn. I think the question really is, well, there is a current let's say act, the Gender Equality Act. I think the question being is there any ways how to really implement this? Like, what are the regulations as to which we can really put this into practice? I think the best person to answer this is someone from the law, who could really make us really understand the implications. So I guess what Ajahn mentioned is really like how this is happening in Thailand. So in terms of the specificities of the law, perhaps the person from that department would be able to best answer that. But thank you for bringing that up as a discussion point.
Yeah, and just perhaps some of my own thought to add into our audience question earlier. I think we in Thailand, in order to implement any sorts of rules and regulations, we have to also think about these two things: the governance of gender, meaning the governance of gender and the gender of governance. The latter being who has the power to implement a certain certain laws. Yes. So long as we are regulated or even ruled by a very, can I say, patriarchal led authorities, I think it will be a very challenging and quite difficult task to have specific laws and regulations that would actually benefit and acknowledge diversity.
I think, Ajahn, perhaps what we can share is that I think there are now universities in Thailand that allow transgender to really wear women uniforms. I think that's a very good reform at that institutional level to really recognize, the way we self-identify ourselves. And I think that's a very concrete, let's say, rule or a regulation to really recognize this diversity at that institutional level, right?
In line with that, Joey, I just would like to ask Achan Porani, if in Chula, do you have activities or an institution or a center that addresses concerns regarding gender and sexuality?
Dewey, from perhaps our audiences from Jula, do we have that? But I mean, from my own experience, my own students actually are trying to get a lot of activities to promote gender diversity and differences with regards to the emerging non-normative identities today. But is there a how should I say this, a specific department or things like that? I'm not quite sure. Joey, do you have any information on this?
I'm not really sure, but perhaps Golf can help us with this.
Yeah.
Are there any student-led activities that really promote gender diversity? Golf?
Yes. So recently we just have like, a drag queen competition at our programs, at our faculties. That would be, our way of expression. We can be anything, drag. We just like when RuPaul, say to us, I don't know if all of you would agree with this statement or not, but I think it's quite true that we are born naked and the rest is drag. So I think for our programs to organize, drag queen competition, that's a part of, a way to promote the idea or the concept that gender or sex is predetermined and also, socially construct, and we need to reconsider them. So I think that's a part of the activities that we're promoting.
Right. So there you go. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Ajahn Dr. Prani, Assistant Professor Dr. Jayson, for really gracing this inaugural collaboration between the University of the Philippines-Diliman and also the Chulalongkorn University. Indeed, this has been a very fruitful discussion, and I believe everyone has learned a lot, not only in language and media, but also serious issues governing gender and sexuality in both countries. So everyone, this concludes the talk on gender, language, and media in the Philippines and Thailand, a transnational conversation. And if you wanted to be updated with the talks offered by the faculty, please feel free to like or follow the program's Facebook page at arts.chulalongkorn University. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maraming
Thanks, Joey.
salamat.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Congratulations, Ajahn.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Buhay.
You did it.
Buhay from the Philippines.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Golf.
ขอบคุณมากครับ
Boys, you're here. Thank
ขอบ
you.
คุณค่ะ ขอบคุณค่ะ